Today, I'm thrilled to kick things off with Helen Crumley, communications and PR consultant. And we met previously while she was at her other organisation, Kidscape. So I'm really excited to talk to Helen today. We'll be talking about her career, her job, what her experiences are, and what's next on her journey. So let's dive in. Hi, Helen. So I'm just going to say a little bit about you and then we'll talk through the questions. So Helen's got 25 years experience across the public, health and not-for-profit sectors. She has built her career on the belief that the most powerful communications don't just reach people, they move them. Her work is driven by desire and commitment to supporting mission-driven organisations, spanning leadership roles within the NHS, local government and the third sector. So Helen, thank you. And just to say that I saw you at a charity comms event, and straight away, I think that same day, I was sending you a LinkedIn message and saying you've got to come and talk to me too. So I'm very grateful that you've done that.
Thank you.
today.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you were very quick. I was checked my little inbox and there you popped up. I was like, oh, that's very exciting and really lovely to connect with you.
Exactly. And I think charity comms is one of those places where you do get to see people in an element and hear more about their work. It's definitely a great place that you were able to go on there and tell us about what you were working on.
Yeah, it was one of those moments as well where I was feeling quite brave because we pitched for it. They were doing a little submission. They were open for submission. So it was the first time I thought, actually, I was really proud of the work that myself and my colleagues had done. And I thought, no, I think we can share some nice learning. It was an exciting and slightly nervous pitch, but yeah, it was a really good experience.
It was a fantastic presentation. I remember it, which is good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So obviously, you've got 25 years experience. How did you find your way into comms?
So it was kind of, I think a lot of people are like this. It was a circuitous route. I started at university paying my way through it by working in conferences and events in the holidays. And when it came to graduation, I went, oh, I like doing events. So my first role was events and marketing. And then from there, I was working to organisations when I lived in London, and I worked for the Arts Council and business in the community, primarily events and marketing, but within teams that were comms, PR, media, digital was at this time, we're talking mid 2000s, digital was emerging, then social media. I picked up a lot of bits and pieces along the way, and it was round about 2010, I took a little career break, went around the world. And when I came back, that's when my focus completely shifted. And I came back in communications. I don't think anyone, and I think I've said this to quite a few people in the past, I don't think anyone really puts on their careers form at school, I want to be a communications advisor. It's not something that anyone ever, oh, that's what I'll do. But I think it naturally evolved over time through the roles I initially went for, but also I think why I do what I do. I've always worked in places where the words I write or the videos I help create or anything like that will help someone at the end. So it's that mission. I do it because every day you get up and you think today you might make a difference in someone's life. And sometimes you don't even know you've done that. So you put stuff out, don't you? And you kind of hope that that's what you do. So I think that's what drives me in communications as well, is kind of using the knowledge and the skills I have to help others. So yeah, so that's how I kind of got into it. And yeah, here we are 25 years later.
Similar and not similar for me, but I came from a science background. So I went off and did a biotechnology degree, which was great. But then suddenly realized actually I can do more than that. So I went into science communication, and then you end up, like, as you say, helping people trying to make a difference. And that's the reason, right, to stay in the third sector, to kind of bring people with you on a journey or help them change behavior or something. So yeah, I always feel satisfied when you're doing something.
You kind of go to bed at night and wake up in the morning with that satisfaction that somewhere in some small way you're helping.
Yeah, exactly. And who, if anyone, has influenced you in your sort of approach to comms?
I think quite a few people. I remember when I worked at the Arts Council, this is 20 odd years ago. So kind of 2003, 2004, kind of the head of media there, a guy called Dave McNeil. He greatly shaped me. I think I was at that stage, I was fresh out of uni. I was just learning my craft. And I think he just he taught me the way to behave with people, treat people with respect, to listen. He probably doesn't even know that he had that impact on me, but he certainly did. And then I think later in my career, when I was at Essex, my kind of line manager there and the head of comms, I think his title's now head of profession, Jessica and Andy, they kind of really, that's where I really cut my teeth. Like when you work in local council comms, I've kind of shifted. I work with local council, then NHS and charity. And each time I've kind of moved, people like you a bit more. So people do not like you when you work in the local council, even though all you're trying to do is your best. So you become quite tough and quite resilient because you're always reacting. You try so much to do your proactive work, but there's always something that is happening. And so I think what they taught me there is that ability to quickly move as well. And then also quickly move from topic to topic, because it's not just one thing you're doing day in, day out. I think that goes back to as well, working in comms, why I enjoy it so much. I think naturally I have kind of a low boredom threshold. So I need to have that challenge in the work because otherwise I'm like, oh, like this, I'm doing the same thing today. There's certain jobs I just could not do for that reason. But I think kind of those three people as there, I was kind of see those as like managers, but also I think I've been influenced by colleagues. So yesterday I was having a phone call with an old colleague from 15 years ago, Laura Austin, and she's a fantastic lady. She's very focused now on digital, but we worked together for 3 or 4 years. It's people that you meet along the way. I think I'm going back 20 years. So I always say I've worked in a few organizations, but whenever I leave them, I might leave the organization, but I don't leave the people. Like the people there, I kind of have quite a wide network of people because I'm just naturally curious about people, how they operate, how they work, who they are as people. I'm really glad for that in my work, because when I come to things like challenges or new things I'm working on, I know I can draw on a pool of really talented people and professionals that I've worked with over my career.
And you find that it's a small network as well, right? So you're bumping into people at different points. I have a colleague actually I spoke to yesterday who probably for the last 20 years, we've both been in charities working with each other. So it is nice. Cross paths again and sort of connect.
Oh, definitely. And just to see where they've gone and what they're up to now. But yeah, it is more. I think it helps in with sometimes with my surname because there's not many people Crumleys. Most of them are related to me. So I kind of, whatever people go, I've heard your name. I'm like, it's because of the surname. But I kind of, I've ended up in organizations working with people I worked with a few years ago, so it is quite a small world. And I think also when you go down into a specialism like charity sector, or you've got NHS, or you've got local government, you kind of do get to know people quite quickly.
And so moving on to sort of campaigns and achievements now, what is the one campaign or one of the campaigns that you're mostly proud of and why?
So one of the things I did work on, and where are we now? This is about 4 years, more than that. Anyway, I think it was about 2021. So that's 5 years ago now. It seems, like a blink of an eye sometimes, doesn't it? So I had a contract role at NHSBT, blood and transplant. So like blood donation and organ donation. And I was kind of brought in to support a small team working on a clinical trial. So it was obviously during COVID, and it was looking at convalescent plasma. And does it kind of work as kind of a treatment for people with COVID? And so it was led by a fantastic guy called Stephen Bailey, who I kind of worked into. And what was kind of interesting is my first ever fully remote role as well. He was based up in Liverpool. I'm down in Essex, and we've never actually met, despite the fact we've always wanted to. But for me, I think I spoke just a little bit earlier about always being reactive. This was one of the really proactive pieces of work. There was a lot of pitching out to media just to encourage people to come forward and donate. And I think what was interesting was it was a very specific donation pool that we had to draw from. So it had some really clear kind of markers for where we were working to reach. But it was like hugely successful. And I think at some point I was a bit nervous because we were very specific. And, there's always that risk of you're asking for this specific donation pool. And, people come to you and go, well, why can't I? And I think what was interesting was we had medical science and data behind. So you as kind of an ex-science comms person would kind of get this, we had that to draw on as that is the reason why we were very specific. It was kind of heartwarming to see how many, when we put pieces of communication out, how many people responded and came forward. There was like 50, 60,000 people put their names forward. And kind of bizarre, weirdly, the scientists love this, but it doesn't work as a kind of treatment. But they were so excited because it was definite, and you don't get a lot of definites in the science world. So it was really weird. But for me and for Steve, we were like, oh, how are we going to do this? Because it doesn't work. And normally that's the kind of thing you go, oh my God, everyone's going to be like really cross about this, but actually everyone was really delighted. And it kind of led on to working a little bit on the plasma for medicines as well, which does work, and how it treats a lot of kind of autoimmune things. And also one of the weirdest thing, that campaign kind of got me in the Lancet, which
Oh, wow.
is just bizarre because I'm like, don't GPs and doctors get in that, and scientists? But it was just obviously being part of that team. But I think, yeah, I think really proud of that because it was such a quick mobilization. I'm sure you recall at that time, everything was so quick, quick, quick. It kind of leads on as well. My next one, I went into CCG world, working in there. And again, this was around when the vaccine was available.
CCG.
Oh, so it was Cambridge and Peterborough.
Okay.
So again, mostly remote. I think it took me 6 months to meet the team that I was working with. Uncle Laura Halstead heads up the team, still does now. She's incredible, incredible woman to work for, and really, really, really lovely and really supportive. While working there, it was around the announcement that from Prime Minister at the time that everyone had the opportunity to be vaccinated in 3 weeks. I think the whole of the NHS had a gasp and was like, but again, that's something being really proud of. Like, everyone in the team had such a small focus then. Like, I was internal comms, and that was just what I did for 3 weeks. We had other people just working on socials. Everything got dropped for that.
Yeah.
And I think it was really hard, and it was just around Christmas. Everyone was just being able to start seeing people, but we had to kind of just drop everything and be there to push all that through. So although it was a tough period, it was something I'm really proud that I was part of the team. And I'm sure there were thousands of others, not just comms, across the NHS.
Absolutely. And I think that moment, well, we all remember COVID, but just knowing that there was research projects going on and vaccinations, and everyone was always sort of like, how on earth did this get pulled together so quickly? Because you had to have all hands on deck, and everything else was deprioritized, which is a good thing because you knew that this was the only thing you had to focus on. So that on its own is a lesson, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'd never worked for a day. Like in the council, we used to have something would happen and it would get in the press, and for a few hours, your focus would be that while you managed it. But that 8, 9 hours, maybe 12 hours. But this was 3 weeks of just one single focus for everyone. It was incredible to see how adaptable as human beings we are, and how we can pull together, and particularly at the moment, and I'm not going to go into political situations, but it was kind of, it gives me hope because I know that we can do it and that we can all pull together. And that was a fantastic example of that.
And is probably your toughest challenge? What is your toughest challenge that you faced in communications, and how did you handle that?
I think that probably is one of the toughest challenge. I think there's been a few, like sometimes it can be personalities, people that you come up against. I'm sure a lot of people working in communications, everyone thinks they can do comms. I know we were speaking about being members of CIPR and being chartered, and it's one of the reasons I did that is to put that professionalism behind what I do. We don't just make things go viral, put things out on socials, just write social posts. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of kind of behavioral science behind it all. It's an area I want to explore more of, and I'm starting to go to webinars and stuff because I've done the work, but sometimes I want a bit more knowledge behind that whole behavioral science. Look at why people do what they do. One of the things we used to have in the NHS was don't tell people what to do because they'll do the polar opposite as soon as you ask them. It's things with A&E, don't go to A&E. Everyone goes to A&E because that's just how human beings are wired. It's kind of that bit is kind of probably the toughest bit. That's where conversations come in. That's where sitting down with people, I think, is kind of how to resolve that, is to explain where you're coming from, but also find out what they want. I'm sure you've had it as well. You get people come to you, oh, we need a press release or we need a comms plan. I'm like, let's take it back a step before we get to that. Why do we need it? And what are you trying to achieve? It kind of takes time. You have to kind of, and sometimes you have to find your little champion pockets around an organization or within a group. But I think it's all about that talking to people, explaining where you're coming from. So outside of the challenges of COVID, I think it is that challenge of the whole profession being seen as a profession.
You're right. And I think quite recently I did a workshop for non-comms people, trying to get them to think about their audience and to think about who they're talking to and why they're talking to them and what the motivation of that person is. And it was a bit of an eye opener. I got really positive feedback from it because, we all do our day to day job. You think you know your audience, but actually you have no idea what motivates them to take an action or why they're going to do something. You're asking them for money, but are you talking to them in the right way? Going to a trust fund as opposed to an individual is so different. You can't talk the same way. Non-commerce people need to understand that and need to understand that actually, as you say, we have to take time. We have to think strategically about what we do and why we say what we say. And it's not just pushing out posts on Facebook or LinkedIn. LinkedIn has become that thing where everyone thinks you need to do it daily, but you don't actually. But you need to something that you need to say, in a good way, sort of provoking way, but you don't just want to churn stuff out.
In my last role, Kids Inspire, Laura was fantastic. She's in my team and we'd always challenge. We don't need daily posts. We don't need vanity posts, which is what they amount to sometimes. We need a post that add value, that have something to say. It can be less is more in there, but making sure that what you put on there is important and the reader gets something, takes something away. And that could be educational, it could be an action to take. It doesn't have to be the same thing. So I think the algorithms, as we all love and hate them, but they're there and they're important to follow, but also why are we putting out what we're putting out wherever we're putting it out? It's going back to that, why are we doing it? And what do we want our audiences to do as a result of what we put out? And I think it takes you back to early in my career when I had the campaign. And I know one of the things we spoke about, so things that didn't work so well. I had this campaign, which was in theory fantastic, but was around getting adults with disabilities into work and small businesses. But we'd neglected to involve them so much in what we wanted to do, and also hadn't really talked much to the small businesses. We'd had a great campaign. We'll go to where they are because we know they're busy people. So if we go where they are, then they don't have to leave anywhere. But we hadn't actually talked to them in beforehand. So for me, it was like a real salient lesson in audience and who we're trying to reach and making sure that before we even plan anything, we involve everyone in what our initial ideas are and also listen to them. So ever since that moment, it was a real eye-opener for me. I was like, yeah, you might have all this great theory, Helen, and know how to put a Oasis campaign plan together and do all this, but actually you've got to really do the planning work. And what you said a few minutes ago about just taking some time. And I think sometimes it's hard. And quite often as well, I think in commerce, people expect you to have ideas like snap it, oh, you're so creative, you're going to come up with something straight away. And I said, no, I said sometimes, yes, but just like most people, I need to think on something. I need the information. My brain needs to process it. I need to have those conversations I was talking about. So I think just having, whenever I'm doing a new campaign or looking at a new area of work, I always try and book it out like a few hours or a couple of days just to spend thinking. And sometimes I can be out walking to the shops and that's when the idea will hit me. It's not necessarily when you're sitting in front of a laptop or in a meeting room. That's when your brain is getting the information. It still does need to process it.
I said Kidscape earlier, but it's Kids Inspire, so thank you
It's
for
Kids
correcting
Inspire.
myself. So when you worked with them, I'm really interested in hearing about that because you talked about limited budgets and trying to get resources. So can you tell us a bit about this campaign? It was a photography campaign that you were doing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. So this is obviously where we first came across each other after the pitch. I'm not going to take complete credit for the whole thing. There was two in my team, Laura and Emily as well. But as head of comms, it was kind of one of the things I'd kind of noticed is we had some great photos from a photo shoot that happened 2 or 3 years earlier. We'd used them and they were great and they showcased very, very strongly the therapy side of Kids Inspire. So Kids Inspire is a children's mental health and trauma informed charity. They work across Essex and Suffolk and they help children between the ages of 4 and 18. And specifically, and this is where it links in really nicely to the images, they work with the family as well. They don't just work with a child like in isolation. They work with the support network around the child, which is family or anyone close, that's significant to them. What kind of highlighted that we wanted to do, again, very low budgets. I'm sure pretty much every charity around the country and around the world is aware of that. And you really want to save the money for where it needs to go. But we wanted to look at the imagery and we wanted to look at where we could use it. So across our website and newsletters, flyers, it wanted to show the breadth of the work. So not just the therapy, but the mentoring. They have mentors. They have like coming on to 100 mentors that work with the children as well. They wanted to show the work of the therapists. So they're like play therapists, so kind of drama, music, arts, a whole range of therapy that goes on, but also reflecting that work with the family. So fortunately for us, Laura is a photographer. She's first to say that portrait photography is not her specialism, but she was able to give advice on the formats. But also, I think what we looked at was identifying, working with the therapist, again, making sure we talk to the experts about it, about what the best shots might be to showcase their therapies, talking to mentors, would they be available to be involved and happy to be in a shot? I kind of use the networks around in the organization. So we asked the staff if you've got any children that would be happy to be in the shot. The one thing we couldn't use, we were really clear that we wanted it to be authentic and real. But obviously, for safeguarding, we would never use an actual client. So it had to be a child that wasn't a client. But outside of that, we had mentors involved, we had parents involved, we had children involved, the therapists involved. So the real therapists that work there were in the photos as well. The plan then was to pull the whole day together with the shot list. What did we want? So we wanted to show mentoring, we wanted to show therapy, we wanted to show the child and the family therapies together. We chose a day. Fortunately, the sun was shining, unlike most of this year so far. And, had kind of whole day set aside. We'd also, one of our fundraisers' sons was just finishing his degree in media and photography. So he was our second photographer. He volunteered his time. It was really good for his portfolio as well. But I think also thanks to his mum working there, was really passionate about the subject matter. So all of this was, I think our budget spend was about £45 on food and drink because we had a little room we had some snacks and everything so people could come and do, once they'd had shots taken and everything. And we had a whole variety of shots taken through that day of, really good quality that had so many uses and so many different areas of the work of the charity could be reflected. And, the longevity on the photos would be fantastic. We didn't get everything. I mean, and I think that's something that when, if someone is wanting to think about doing this, you can't capture anything. We know kind of what was missed. And also there was areas that we could do a bit more of, but it wouldn't take such a big day. Again, it was like, okay, we just need to get this, this, and this. We could fill that gap. So, but yeah, if you go on the website now, you'll see it's littered with a whole array and get a newsletter from them, sign up to newsletter, all of that. It has those photos.
Brilliant. And I really liked what you said about that safeguarding was kind of like the number one thing. We weren't going to take pictures of the children and their families. This is completely private, but we were going to feature children, but just not those who are having treatment right now. So I thought that was important. And also the fact that you can help other young people by photography and creating their portfolio. Because I think that's another thing, isn't it? Is that if you haven't got a budget, but you can talk to a young person, a student, someone who's trying to build their portfolio, it's a win-win, isn't it, for both of you? And it's something where you can even give them a testimonial, you could give them some other thing in kind that's going to be helpful for their future, as well as you not having to spend tons of money where you haven't got it as well. So I thought that was brilliant. Well done. And I guess, as you say, if you've not got everything, it's always worth still having that list of the shot list of things you missed that you never know in the future. At some point, they could redo another shoot or in another moment, maybe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we nearly forgot to take, and I think I took the only one, was behind the scenes, because we always wanted to do like this. So that I managed to get one picture behind the scenes because it was full on. I know Laura and Emily would testify, they each had a stream each that they were responsible for and running around. And obviously Laura was taking photos as well. So it was an incredibly busy day. You have to kind of factor in the bit of time of that day out of staff time. But I think it is comms and marketing team. You can kind of say that is kind of day job stuff in a very extreme but and highly focused day job. But the benefits in the last 10 months since of being able to use all those photos, just showing authentic photos of what the charity is, who they support, what they do, that variety is just kind of stamped in being real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I guess if somebody had a teeny bit more money, they could book a photographer, but still, as you say, the same way of running how you did, you could bring it all into one day to reduce costs. Yeah, there's so many things you can do, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I say, we're very fortunate with the photographers, one in-house and one through a team member. But it is one of those things, it's kind of like those kind of skills audits you say within an organization. It is, I always say, before you kind of look outside, look inside. Within where you're working, who, have you asked the staff if any of them is a photographer, or whatever you're looking to do that could help before then going out. But equally, even if, I have worked with photographers, I have been fortunate, when I've been in London and also at the council, there's a little bit more money in the budget, not a lot, but there is a little bit more money to pay for things like photographers. But it's that thought, again, I said it earlier about before you even start doing it, why are we doing it? What do you want to do your planning before. And then when you know you've got to do the bit of the spend, you maximize what you can get out of that spend that you're making.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I think that's really good advice, being able to plan before you even think about it, really understand what outcomes you're looking for. Take your time in doing that, as we said earlier.
I know. And that's hard sometimes. I know.
It is hard.
I was reading something recently about everyone is just constantly, when you've got a moment, it's like, when do you have a moment? And I think you just have to be really strong and in yourself and hold yourself or your team to account. We will take that time because actually the benefits of taking that time. Otherwise, you're just permanently running like a hamster, and you never get to be a little bit more strategic. You never get to do a little bit more forward thinking, in a year's time, in 2 years' time, what do you want to be doing? And you'll just keep going around in circles. So it's easy to say, I know here, but it's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, and you're right. The pace has obviously moved up a notch, hasn't it? Especially when it comes to digital, because people think you could deliver things so much quicker now. But yeah, put a stop to it and make sure that you do all the considerations and, push back on timelines. I've done that quite a few times where people have said, I want something now. It's like, well, no. Being able to say when you can deliver and what is realistic around that.
Yeah.
To make the best out of everything, of all the opportunity. Yeah. Fantastic. So you mentioned leading. How has your leadership style evolved over your career and your experiences?
I kind of think, and I think I kind of started about writing a blog about this. So you might see this in the future. But I think leadership for me, when I was younger, was like, oh, you just need to be able to tell people everything that they need to do and what they need to be doing. And I think over time, that's not how I lead. Over time, I've kind of realized that my natural instinct is to showcase I call it silent leadership. It's kind of showcasing the talents and skills of others within the team, because by making your whole team stronger, then whoever you're working for will benefit. So I try and support any members of the team, work with them. I go, what are they interested in? What are they scared about? Where do they think they need more support? Where do they want more help? But it is really pushing them forward. So this blog's going to be weird. It's all going to be about how I don't want the kudos for everything, even though I'm just about to write a blog about the fact that I don't want the kudos for everything. But if that makes any sense whatsoever. But it is about, my leadership style is supportive leadership. I'm not going to be like marching forward going, follow me, do as I say. I'm going to be, I want to learn from you. I want to support you. We will grow together. We will learn together, and we will celebrate success together. That's how I lead. It's very collaborative. I'm not a dictator. I'm not going to be bossing people around. It's not in my nature. So I think I've learned to lean into that. I've asked a few people what 3 words would sum me up. And aside from chatty, which is perfect for coming on a podcast, they were saying like supportive and brave. So I'm taking that as quite happy with that. And I think there's a lot to be said for leading with compassion, leading with collaboration, leading together. And I think that's where my leadership style has evolved to, from that kind of textbook, again, not just doing what it says in the book. You have to know everything. You have to be really like confident. You can't show weakness or that kind of thing. That's the opposite of how I lead.
And what's the best piece of advice you've received as a comms leader?
Gosh, that's sad. There's so much in there. I would kind of go back to, I don't know whether they actually said this, but it's never going to be perfect.
Mm,
Think that is it. And I think it stems from when I was working in events, it was very much had to be everything. I felt everything had to be perfect. 100%. A couple of people have said it. Getting something out there, having it, starting something, doing it to start off with is better than perfect. So good is better than perfect. And because you can always build on it. So I think sometimes you can get to a bit of inertia, can't you, when in comms you're like, oh, I just need to craft this sentence, or I just need to do this. That's the bit that I got over. I'll always say, oh, I'm not precious about my writing. And I've learned that, I think, not to be precious about it, because the only person, unless I'm writing for myself, it will always get changed. Because again, we go right back to where we started talking about behavioral science. People like to have an opinion, they like to have an input. If you send them something, they'll invariably do a little tweak. I always know if they've just tweaked a bit of grammar, then it's fundamentally okay, because that's someone just putting a little, oh, you need a comma here, or you need this. Okay. I'm like, fine, the content's fine. Like this, it's like when I used to work in events and people used to complain about the toilets or the catering. I'd be like, fine, that means the content of the event was fine, because they're just complaining about things you can't really control too much. I think that's that advice, to just do it, to just be brave and to put something out there and to get something going. It's probably the best piece of advice. It just keeps things moving. It keeps a forward momentum.
yeah. I think you can get stuck, can't you, with the perfection kind of style. And unfortunately, most comms people are perfectionists. And that's what we're taught, isn't it? But then you learn heavily that that's not practical, that's not human.
No, exactly. Because you're dealing with people with opinion,
Yeah.
you've got to have a balance. You've got
Mm,
to go, you know what, actually somebody, and he had to be really careful using this phrase. When I worked at the council, there was a chap called Adam. He was my kind of policy counterpart. And we used to have some really interesting discussions. I would go over to him with whatever I was working on, and he would look at it, and then he would critique or something. And he'd always have this expression, well, I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. And that really stuck with me. I kind of left there nearly 10 years ago, but I still say it, and I credit Adam with telling it. And I think that is something that really obviously stuck with me. But it is like, you know what? Yeah, probably could do with something a little bit more, but I'm not going to die in a ditch over it, because getting it out there is the most important thing.
yeah, exactly. Great. So let's think about now the future of comms. So you're obviously starting a new journey for yourself as a consultant. So how do you see the role of comms changing in the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
I think I touched on it briefly. The world is in a very kind of on the edge kind of place, I think. And I think that's where comms is going to have to come in. There's obviously AI, like elephant in the room, everyone's talking about it. But there is also misinformation and disinformation, like, and the sources where they believe it from, and truth, and what's real, what's made up, what's AI generated. All of that, I think, over the next 5 years, probably even quicker than that, if I'm honest, is gonna come into play. There's things that reminds me of when social media first came out, and
Yeah.
people like, you can't have access to Facebook and all things blocking. And there is no block on what's happening now. We had all of that going on 10, 15 years ago. But now, for me, it doesn't keep me awake at night, but I do worry about it. I see things, and my instinct now is to go, is that real? And 5 years ago, I would never have thought that. You see all the videos on Instagram, and that's not real, that's AI generated. But it's kind of being there for comms professionals. Like, when we're putting information out or we're talking to people, it's finding out from them, what do they believe and who do they believe. And I credit Dan Slee with introducing me to this, the Edelman Trust, that comes out once a year, and it shows who people trust. And it is still people like themselves. People don't trust the politicians, they don't trust the CEO. And we're still stuck in this land where all these statements are coming out from them, and I'm like, people just don't believe you when you say it. You need to be getting people that other people believe.
Yeah, and it's authenticity, I think, as well. It's being able to keep drumming on about what you are and who you stand for. All the not for profits, all the charities out there, they work so hard to someone else just throws a whole load of crap at their misinformation. But it's sticking to your guns, isn't it? And being able to say, we know what we stand for, we know what our values are, and we're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to prove. So, like you said, photography, AI, being able to show these are real people, these are honest pictures, they're not fabricated pictures.
Yeah.
But there's also the ethics around photography, isn't there? And not showing people and children, vulnerable people in distress. We don't need that sort of imagery anymore. So this all
No.
blends together, doesn't it? In that,
And that's something I know. I did a few presentations at the back end of last year on AI and ethics of using AI, and it's something really passionate about. I'm not anti AI, it's here, but I am passionate about how it's used and making sure it's used ethically. And we had a blanket, we don't ever put personal identifiable data into AI, and we don't create images. Again, it goes back to when I was talking about that whole photography day, is they're real images. Yes, the children, for safeguarding reasons, aren't children that are being supported, but the rest of it is real, because ultimately that's the truth and that's what is important. Yeah, I know it's always fun, isn't it, to create this picture of me using AI based on all those things that go around on the sites. And that's fine, that's fun. It's like it's been done in different ways. That's a nice, fun way of using it. But the concern for me is when it's used and put out as truth. And that's kind of where I get concerned about its use, and concerned about there's people that are far more up on the ball about this with AI than I am. I think of someone who's a comms professional working in the area and being concerned about this. I think it's just natural, and I think I should be challenging my thinking and my thoughts whenever I do use it. And I think we all should be, as you say, when you're within an organization, be it in the not-for-profit or the public sector, the NHS. And I know anyone I have worked with know well is doing the same. There is opportunity there, but it has to be tempered, I think, with ensuring that we stay within ethical boundaries.
Okay, so final question for you. What one piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
And I would say it's kind of going to be trust in myself and be brave. You'll be okay. I think I wrote a post a couple of days ago about imposter syndrome, and I still have it to this day. Like, it's still there. It's still that little thing on my shoulder going, no, you don't really know it. And they all know that you don't know. And I know what I'm talking about. But the piece of advice is don't believe the careers advisor who I can't even remember. That should be a solicitor or something. I don't know. And just find your way. I said my career, right back at the beginning, I said I started off graduating, but before I graduated, I had a few years working in retail. I went back to university as a mature student at 24. 22-year-old me working in Next, which was a really nice place to work for in London, would not have anticipated where I am now. Just to go where life takes you, I think, as well. I've had a very kind of up and down, squiggly career, but everything has happened for a reason. And I think I'm richer for it. I just think I shouldn't value the younger me. Talk about don't look at other people to validate your success wherever you go, whatever you do. And I think that's what I would probably say. Younger people now, like late teens, early 20s, and don't know what to do. And I'm like, I had no idea. It's fine. So I would give that advice out to anyone. Oh, where should I be going? What should I be doing? And I'm like, just at the moment, I think when you're that age, it's like the world is your oyster, and don't beat yourself up if you don't think, oh, I should be here by then. I should be there by then. It's your life. Live it the way it comes at you.
Exactly. No one has a linear career unless you're like a doctor and you're going through medicine.
Yeah.
We all have squiggly, as you say, squiggly careers. We try this, we try that. We didn't like what we did at uni, or we didn't go to uni. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're finding your way in the future and just go on your gut instinct.
And find those people that support you. I'm fortunate throughout. I've got some really great friends, a very supportive family, which I'm very fortunate for. But it is, when we were talking earlier about those people that I've still known 15, 20 years on, it's find your professional and your work tribe as well. Find the people that when you're having a tough time, you can turn to. When you're having a great time, we'll celebrate with you, celebrate their successes. We all lift each other up a little bit, and we can all support each other when it's needed. I think along the way as well, it's like having those supportive peers has just been a godsend.
Helen, thank you so much. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Comms Collective. Thank you so much to Helen for sharing her experiences and her insights. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to follow the podcast on your favorite app so you never miss an episode. It would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the show. It helps more comms professionals like you discover the stories. And of course, join the conversation online, share this episode on social media, and tag us using the Comms Collective. Thank you for listening. I'm Vishnu Somtu, and I look forward to bringing you more honest, inspiring conversations next time.